what have I gotten myself into? Am I gonna die? I'm so excited for this video. I bought a one-way ticket to Europe. How crazy. These are all of the amazing moments that came out of a decision to quit my job, quit my life basically, and move to Europe with no plan of coming back. And I realized preparing for this video that there's just so much information. There's just a lot that goes into solo traveling that I'm not going to be talking about in this video, but I would like to make videos on in the future. Make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you won't miss it. Let's get into it. So let me start by asking, why did I even buy a one-way ticket? It ultimately is much cheaper to buy a round-trip ticket, but I really wanted the one-way ticket experience. I really wanted to be completely open to wherever the travels took me, and I didn't want to have to worry about having to leave from a specific country or city at any certain time, because I didn't want to lose any opportunities that potentially would present themselves to me. But in buying a one-way ticket, I had come to terms with the idea of never returning to the US. I hadn't planned any visas or anything on my way over to Europe. I knew that I had 90 days of a tourist visa. But again, I just was like trying to go wherever the wind would blow me. I had only lived in the Pacific Northwest up until that point, so I mean, I was okay with the idea of moving to Europe and staying there. Also, what I really wanted was a fresh start with no expectations. I wanted to kind of recreate myself in a way. Solo traveling has always been in the back of my head all through high school and college. I felt like I was more passionate about traveling than about what I was actually pursuing career-wise. And it never really crossed my mind to travel with someone else. And it was just more natural to me to kind of cling on to myself than anyone else. Also, I wanted to make it an experience that was completely my own. So after graduating in the spring of 2014, I knew I wanted to travel, but I didn't know where, I didn't know how, I didn't really have any resources to guide me because I didn't know anybody who had backpacked to Europe at the time. A lot of my friends or family, you know, would do like the fancy kind of traveling, but I really wanted to make sure it was the budget kind because I wanted to fund this myself. That was super important to me. And at the time I was scooping ice cream for $10 an hour, and I was waiting tables on the weekends, and at nights I was working as an actor. I was hustling. I didn't really know how much money I wanted to save, but I know that I had kind of figured out I wanted to make this traveling thing happen in the next year, and I had to work my ass off to get there. My rent was really low. It was like between $300 and $600 a month, and I was able to walk to work, so I cut out all my expenses. I had deferred my student loans, so I didn't have that expense at the time either. One day I just went to a coffee shop. I went on Skyscanner, which is like my favorite budget travel website, and I bought a ticket for Frankfurt, Germany, one way. And that was such a terrifying moment, but so exciting because now I had a deadline. I learned that I work best with a deadline. I was truly motivated, I was truly excited, and I found it so easy to save money because I could picture that moment in my mind where I was able to get the out of Seattle, which made it super easy to tell people that I couldn't go out, I couldn't spend any money, because I knew I was about to live out my dream and I was so close to it, and I was doing it all myself. So proud. But it was also a very selfish time in my life because while I was like ready to run to this new chapter of my life, I wasn't really thinking about other people. I can really see how much stress I put on my friendships and my relationships and my family by deciding to just leave. Really nothing or no one was gonna stand in my way. It was also a sad end to a lot of friendships because I didn't know if I would be back. That could have been the end, and it turns out that it was. So yeah, in a way it's selfish, but there's just some things you gotta do for yourself, and I will always stand by that. This is a lot of talking. So basically, I had saved up around $5,000. $5,000 saved in a year, making $10 an hour, plus, you know, serving a little bit on the side. It's not bad. That's actually really good. But I remember there being some setbacks as well right before I left. So that fund kind of took a huge hit. I was down to like $3,000-ish, probably less honestly. And then after buying like all of my supplies, a microfiber towel, backpack, packing cubes, travel insurance, a coat, that stuff adds up. It's really expensive. So I really didn't end up with as much money as I wanted, but I knew I would figure it out somehow. I ended up moving out of my apartment onto my friend's couch couch. Because my travel fund had taken so much of a hit, I needed another job. And like not paying rent wasn't enough. And this guy actually got me a job at his retail job over Christmas so I could make some extra money. So before I knew it, I was on the plane. Being a Virgo, I'm a control freak, but I found a lot of control in unknown circumstances, which sounds completely backwards, but in my mind and in my heart, it makes a lot of sense because at least I was writing my own story. I had control over every decision. There was no one else's influence on this trip. My success was no longer dictated by a boss or a job or a career or anything beyond my own self. Honestly, I had never felt so liberated in my life to be on that plane, gone. So on my way to Frankfurt, Iceland Air offers a stopover in Iceland, which was really cool. I'm not sure if they still do it. This was all happening in 2016, by the way. So I had, I think it was a day or day and a half stopover in Iceland, meaning that it was basically free for me to stay there because it was trying to bring tourism to Iceland. So I was like, great. I didn't really prepare for it at all. I actually even got the date wrong on my hostel. I had paid for an extra night because of the time change. I thought I was gonna be there a day longer than I was, but I guess it's better to over-prepare than under-prepare. So I got to Iceland in the middle of the night and it was just kind of mistake after mistake after mistake. So I flew into Iceland. I was there at like 5 in the morning, maybe earlier, I don't know. It was so dark out. But I didn't have a way to get from the airport to my hostel. I didn't really think that it would be far. From the map that I had looked at when I picked what hostel, I automatically wanted one close to the airport. So if I like put on my backpack and walked out of the airport, it's like ice, sleet, darkness. So I was able to book a last second seat on a shuttle that would take me to my hostel, which was expensive because I had to book that last minute. I was actually experiencing a lot of homesickness, jet lag as well. And it was like dark out really at weird times. So I just felt really tired all the time. And I remember like curling myself up like a burrito in my hostel bed with my other 2 roommates in this little room, trying to make myself feel at home. Didn't really feel like going outside at all. I was just kind of in shock that I was really away from everything and everyone. I just felt alone. It was a huge slap in the face, like, I'm doing this. Oh, and it was so cold. I mean, it's like Iceland, you know? You would think that I prepared for the cold. But one moment I really remember was hearing a Justin Bieber song, and I was like, I don't really know what I expected Icelandic music to be like, but I really didn't expect to hear American pop. When I was there, I slept a lot. I had a few panic attacks, went into the famous churches. I walked around the town area. It was really beautiful. I sat in a cafe, ordered a grilled cheese and tomato soup. It made me feel at home. I could not be more ready to honestly get back on the plane. I would like to go back to Iceland at some point to really fully experience it. I mean, the Blue Lagoon was under construction at the time, which is that iconic blue lagoon. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, it's just beautiful, glowing blue waters. It's heated by the lava underground, I think. It definitely deserves more than just a day and a half. I made it to the airport, I got on my flight, and I was on my way to Frankfurt, Germany. And I also had booked a train ride from Frankfurt all the way to Berlin. From there, I really had no more booking, so I had to just kind of figure it out along the way. I actually wanted to stay in Frankfurt or Berlin or one of the two to find work. I wanted to live in Germany. I had taken a couple years of German in high school. Wo ist die Toilette? Kann ich einen Kaffee haben? Ja. Guten Tag. Wie geht's? Es gut. Very basic, but I felt like I had a good place to kind of work my way up from. I went to like some museums. The Holocaust Museum was just devastating. And also, I wanted to experience some of the club culture. Actually, one of the hostels that I stayed at, I met a friend, which I was like, oh my God, I have a friend. So we went out trying to find kind of the club scene. My friend was from Italy and he didn't speak much English at all. Obviously, I didn't speak any Italian, but I really learned that you don't need to speak the same language as someone to understand them. You just pick up more on body language and kind of hear the intention behind their voice, even if you can't understand the words that they're saying. But I was just so happy to like not feel alone. But eventually, you know, it ended, which was really hard actually, because for that small moment, you know, you had a taste of someone else there with you, and knowing that that wasn't there anymore, it was just starting over from scratch again. Like, you just invested so much time telling about yourself, where you're from, like what you're doing on your trip, and then it's like you never see him again. I deeply understood the beauty and the sadness of meeting someone and then letting them go. It was such a tough one because I have never been good at being left behind. I have always been the one to do the leaving. It just seems easier for me that way. So it was a really sad and tough life lesson to learn, to appreciate the time you have with somebody. Even if your time with someone is short, they have something to teach you. If you can focus on the beauty of that, it's easier to move on with your life. But because I really didn't have anywhere else to go, like he had an itinerary planned, didn't quite have like the vagabonding mindset that I had. I felt like I was starting from square one basically, because I really couldn't even find work in Germany. No surprise, because you need a working visa. Also, Berlin is mad expensive, so I realized I needed to make a change. And I also needed to find a more affordable place so that way I would have more time to find work, basically. Hostels in Berlin were actually quite expensive. So I heard about this website called Flixbus, and it was discount bus fares for like local countries around Germany. So I went on the bargain tab because, you know, I'm broke, and I saw this 15 euro bus ticket to Prague, and I was like, I heard about Prague in movies. Or was it like Emily Maynard's season of The Bachelorette? So I was like, I don't really even know what country that's in. I didn't know anything about the Czech Republic. But I was like, you know what? After the research I've done, it looks like a fun place to stay. It looks like it's a cheap place to live, so great, I'll go with it. And I got on this bus, which I need to tell you, this bus ride was scary AF. I couldn't understand any of the announcements that were being made, obviously in a different language, and there wasn't really many people on the bus with me to translate. We ended up taking this like hour pit stop at a McDonald's for no reason, and it was a huge snowstorm, and I was literally like, what have I gotten myself into? Am I gonna die? I need Wi-Fi to tell my mother I love her. It wasn't like that. It wasn't so scary. So I basically got to Prague at like 7 p.m.-ish. The street signs are on the buildings as well, so it's just hard to find out where you are. By some grace of God, I found my hostel. Actually, it didn't take me that long. I dropped off my bag and I just kind of left the hostel even though I was really tired, and I was like, I'm in Prague, I'm gonna get a beer. What is about to happen is one of my most beloved memories of my entire life. I chose the Irish pub. The bar was empty, and I sit like a couple seats over from this girl that's sitting at the bar. She's talking to two of the bartenders. I sit down and one of the bartenders offers me a beer. I sit there, I have this beer. They're all really friendly with each other. I'm not sure how this girl knows the two bartenders, but I just kind of keep to myself because I don't want to come off as like creepy or needy. Since she looks like she knows the two, I'm gonna assume that she is like a local or something, and I didn't want to be that tourist that was like pushing myself onto their conversation. So I just kind of sat back. I turned on my iPad. Oh, forgot to mention, I dropped my phone in a toilet in Berlin, so didn't have a phone. I used my iPad to sit at the bar and play Candy Crush. I was high-key eavesdropping because I wanted to find a way that I could like connect with them a little bit. I mean, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I didn't want to try and push it, but I started to hear they were talking about the night they had last night. So I started kind of giggling a little bit to myself, like hearing some of their conversation and just kind of doing my own thing, but like looking over and laughing. And then I ended up being a part of the conversation a little bit, and I asked that girl that I was sitting next to if she had any ideas on like tourist things I could do. I was there for like a couple hours and decided to leave the bar and go home, but they invited me out the next night. So they're like,
show up at this bar again tomorrow night. We'll show you what an experience in Prague is like.
Little did I know, Prague people like to party. Their bar was open till 4 a.m., but there were so many other bars in Prague that are just open all night long. It's not out of the ordinary for a bartender or a server to go out after they close their shift. Basically that night they had me try real absinthe for the first time. I remember just trying to like play it really cool. You know, I feel like I was a pretty cordial drunk person at the time. I was like, if you give that to me, I'm probably gonna throw it up. And they're like,
all right, well, you have to drink it. We bought it for you.
And I was like, okay. I took half of it, you know, strolled off casually to the bathroom, vomited my brains out, came back and finished the shot, and we kept on going. Like, I was like, who have I become? After like 2 days, me and that girl actually became really good friends. And she happens to not only be a waitress at that Irish bar, but she was a manager at another bar like a 5-minute walk away in Old Town Square. So she hired me. which is amazing because I didn't have a working visa, and I know that in order to stay, I would need to work. I was still staying in hostels at that time, so she opened up her couch to me, bless her heart, and after about a month of being on her couch, her roommate ended up moving out, and I moved into that room, paid rent, worked, and I was completely enveloped in this group of expats that just took me in. And I should also clarify that everyone in that area of Prague speaks English. It's very rare that you find someone, or at least in the customer service, that doesn't speak English, because that's the main common language with all their tourism. So a lot of the employees there speak English only, which was my case, so that was how I was able to work there without speaking Czech. Honestly, it just felt like everything was coming together. I have found a family abroad, like even the day that I went to Prague. How does that happen? That was just such a treasured moment, like deciding to go into that bar that specific night, those specific people, working that bar, meeting that girl right next to me. Those, like, you know, 2.5 months was just some of the best times of my life. And it turns out there was like a lot of partying I needed to get out of my system, because I had been in school my whole life and I felt completely safe there as well. Prague is actually a really safe place for travelers, solo travelers in particular. I never got catcalled walking down the street, you know, I was never harassed or anything. So basically I was able to bartend. It was noon until 10 p.m. That was my shift. And then I would go out, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. And I tell you, I was so happy. But I was also getting really freaking depressed. It was kind of backfiring on me. I started gaining some weight, and to top it all off, I actually ended up getting my heart broken. In hindsight, just a weird situation, but it was a lifestyle that was getting to me toward the end of my 90-day visa, because I was still on my tourist visa. And I knew that I could have tried harder to get any type of visa to stay, but my heart was broken. So I wanted to kind of run away and get a new environment. I mean, I loved the family that I made in Prague, and I knew I wanted to go back. I needed some time away to kind of recollect myself. So I bought a ticket to Ireland. The reason I chose Ireland was because it was out of the Schengen countries. Then if I stayed there for 90 days, I could reset my tourist visa and have another 90 days. When I got to Ireland, I felt like I was really overthinking every decision I was making, thinking that, oh, if I go into this bar or this bar, it could change my life forever. If I stay at this hostel or this hostel, it could change my life forever. And I wanted so badly to have an experience like I had in Prague that I was just overthinking everything, putting too much pressure on it. You know, I was trying to sit at a bar, play Candy Crush. It made me so grateful for the experience that I had in Prague. All of it just made me want to go back there even more, even though I knew I couldn't. I was hoping I would be able to find work spontaneously, but it just wasn't happening, and I was just really sad. I ended up taking a bus to Galway, where I also tried to find work. Galway is a beautiful, beautiful part of Ireland. Couldn't find work. I made some friends. I actually met someone that I had a mutual friend with, which was strange, but really cool. And I decided to just buy my ticket home to Oregon and wait out the rest of the 90 days in the US. Before I went home to Oregon, I ended up visiting a friend from college in England, so I was able to see a show that she was directing, and it was just such a fun experience to cap off the first half of my Europe travels. So I go home, stay with my mom for a couple months, I get a waitressing job, and I work my ass off again to pay off my credit card and to save up some money so I could go back to Prague. I had this really powerful feeling that my time there wasn't over. Right after 4th of July, I flew back to Prague, and I spent the next 3 months there, and it was the best summer of my life. I mean, this group of friends was unlike any group of friends I think I will ever have in my life. Really wonderful personalities and types of people who wanted to do things. Like, yes, we all worked together. Yes, we were all tired, but we just loved being around each other. And they honestly didn't let me be an introvert. They wanted me to experience as much as I possibly could. So they were all giving me like couches to stay on, house sitting, cat sitting. I didn't want to be around people who just sat around at home. I wanted to be challenged by the people in my life, and that Prague family did that for me. You know, I was working overtime. I was working a lot actually, and I was getting quite burnt out. So I took a weekend to go to Vienna by myself, but I was struggling with what I wanted my next steps to be. Despite the fact that I had such a strong group of friends there, there were some people who had grown up there. There were some people who had been there for years already, who were just saving up and working to leave. And I was saving up and working to stay. It was this weird balance between me being a tourist and an expat and trying to create a home and a life, or like being a bad influence on them by suggesting we should go out because I'm like in a different country. It's so exciting, but they were trying to save up and they were spending a lot of money trying to help me have the Prague experience, and it just wasn't balancing, which is ultimately the reason why I decided to leave. The timing just wasn't right, and it was really hard to explain. I could just see myself getting stuck in this cycle of partying and like having that exciting life, but not being able to ever get out. After a year of living on couches, living in hostels, flight after flight, booking after booking, my student loans were adding up. I couldn't pay off my credit card while being there because the Czech crown paled in comparison to the American dollar. If I was ever trying to save up to come back to US, it'd be twice as hard. I had always wanted to live in New York City, and I figured that it was kind of now or never. I'll use my last bit of money to go to New York, try and make it work there. And that's kind of where that solo travel year ended. If you want to pick up where this video leaves off, you can watch my I moved to New York City broken alone story time video, which takes you up until present day. But the beautiful thing is that all of the people that I met, I still talk to. I still have on social media. There's a couple of them that I still consider my best friends. And I have been back to Prague twice since this trip. It is now 2020, and I still keep in touch. A couple of them have visited me. Every time I go to Prague, something freaking magical happens or something crazy happens, and it just keeps me going back wanting more. So to the people of that time, Anna, Little Christina, Czech Christina, Anichka, Mike, Chloe, Tara, Anan, Owen, Simona, Kuba, Jason, Mael, Sean, Therese, Julie, Ben, Alina, Josh, Patrick, Eddie, Sally, Tommy, Zara, Ali, Mariana, Cami. Thanks for all the good memories. I hope we have a reunion sometime, and I hope you feel the same way about that summer as I did. And while solo traveling is not for everyone, the biggest lesson that you can even practice is to become comfortable in your own mind, in your own solitude, even if you're in a relationship. It brought me to the core of myself and taught me values that I want to live my life by. I'll just leave you with what I told my mom when I got back from traveling, is that if I somehow died tomorrow, know that I did everything in my power in my life to live my happiest and most fulfilling life. That I did every single thing in my power to live a life that I was empowered by, inspired by, and proud of. I still think about that to this day. If I were to die tomorrow, did I do everything in my power to feel like I lived a fulfilling life? I know that was long, but thank you so much for sticking through it. I hope you got something from it. If you have any specific questions or specific video topics on solo traveling, leave them in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and ring that notification bell so that you won't miss an upload. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon.